The Delac de Triomphe is certainly probably three of the greatest races in the world today. But the English Derby is undoubtedly the greatest race, and maybe one day in the future we might see an Australian-bred horse, of course bred to English time, take out the great classic. But how's the line at the moment, Jeff? I know we've still got some problems, I believe. We're okay to cross to...
Yes, we're right now, David.
Okay, well, let's take you over to Peter Bromley, who'll be taking you right up to post time for the 1983 English Derby.
Drawn 9 was a switches from Cock Robin, now that horse doesn't run. 22, a sporting challenge from America by Seattle Slew, a horse called Sloopy, winner of $300,000 in the stakes, flown over here on Sunday to take part, ridden by the French-based jockey Yves Saint-Martin and drawn 21. Number 25 is Tenozo, ridden by Lester Pickett and drawn 5. Number 27, with a yellow distinguishing cap, the Noble Player, owned by Mr. Robert Sangster, ridden by Steve Cawthon and drawn 12. Number 28 is Tivian, ridden by Sandy Barkley and drawn 13. Number 29, Tolomeo, ridden by the Italian jockey Gianfranco Dettori and drawn 2. Number 30, Wassel, ridden by Tony Murray and drawn 15. Number 31, locally trained Yawa, Philip Walden, drawn 4. And finally, number 32, Zoffany Blinker for the first time, ridden by Greville Starkey and drawn 14. And now let's find out how they bet from Ian Dark.
And we have joint favourites for the 204th Derby, Tinoso and Salmon Leap, both now showing at 11-2. On 10-1, Morecambe, Wassel and Lowman. 2 on 14-1, Ptolomeo and Carlingford Castle. That's been pretty steady in the market, having been backed well this morning. On 16-1, Sheer Walk from the Shergar stable of Michael Stout and the Noble Player, also 16-1. On 20-1, the French colt Pluralisme and Guns of Navarone. On 25-1, Zoffany and Gordian. Yawa drifting all the time, opened at 25, now up to 50-1. On 100-1, Na, Naorian and Sloopy from America.
But Michael Phillips, the racing correspondent of the Times, has been down to the paddock and had a close look at them. Michael, what do you think of this year's field?
Well, Peter, they're, much and a muchness, really. I thought that one of the joint favourites now, Tinozo, looked marvellously well. Very lithe, very relaxed. Rather different in many, very many ways to the other joint favourite, Pat Edry's ride, the Irish runner, Salmon Leap. Now, he is a colossal horse. He's almost arguably the biggest horse that I've seen in the race since Pinzer. And I think it's very arguable how he'll act on the course. He's won in very heavy ground in Ireland, but he is a big horse. I've seen him move. I wonder how he'll cope with the gradients and the bends. He was rather above himself in the paddock or in the pre-paddock whilst he was being saddled, which shows traces of experience. And although Pat Edry is switched to him, I just wonder whether or not time may show that it's a dubious choice. Obviously, he has a lot of ability. The little Lowman, they're sort of Bill and Ben the flowerpot men, a little pony of a horse and a huge, great big chestnut. The little Lowman, very calm, very quiet, very relaxed. The athlete, much more mature individual. It's a fascinating switch.
I noticed the American horse Sloopy, who's just gone down. He's bandaged 2 huge bare bandages behind. Most unusual for English racing, that.
It is, Peter, but it is very customary in the United States, where, of course, the texture of their racing surface is so much different to ours, and they go down what they call... somebody in my village said, I'm backing Sloopy because they tell me he goes in the slop. And the slop presumably is something very, very mucky indeed. And I said, yes, he does, but under the slop is a very firm surface in America. And the fact that he goes in the slop doesn't mean to say he'll handle the mud here. It's to protect their ankles going down against the firmer surface. Well, I don't think you'll find very much firm underneath today.
A quick flash of betting, Michael. Carlingford Castle now 12-1 from 14. He's another huge horse, isn't he? Like a chaser.
He is, Peter, and funnily enough, if he hadn't won the Gallinule Stakes last time out at the Curragh, where, incidentally, he beat that really good filly, Give Thanks, who we know, we can appreciate the quality of that form because she won the Lingfield Oaks Trial and the Musadora at York within the space of a few days. He beat her or readily anyway, at the Curragh. Had he not done so, the rumour is that he would have been sold to go jumping and join David Nicholson's stable. Now, Carlingford Castle beat her, and I talked to Give Thanks' trainer, Jim Bolger, as recently as Sandown on Monday, where he had a runner, and I said, Jim, did your filly give her running after her exploits in England? And he said, I have no reason to think that she didn't. So you have to really, on this ground, put Carlingford Castle, especially as is the front runner, in with a decisive chance. No wonder he's shortened in the betting.
Well, among those horses that went down extremely well and easily on the ground were Morecambe, particularly. He handled it very well. Pluralis was very keen indeed, his head up, and looked a little bit of a difficult ride. He went down a little bit free, but he really moved. Sheer Walk, I thought, went down extremely well. Beautiful flowing action, lovely action horse. Tinozo looked completely at home on the ground. Noble Player went down beautifully. So did Wassel, and Zoffany too. He went down very easily. He's blinkered for the first time, and he was very, very keen indeed. Yes. So those horses certainly look as if they're at home on this very heavy ground.
Yes, Peter, let's try and wrap them up anyway. Morecambe, of course, won on this sort of ground when he won the predominant stakes at Goodwood. And I think an important factor today is that he's cool, calm, and relaxed in the paddock, and you know what how unsettling it can be here, whereas he was not at Goodwood. I regard that as a very good sign. Sheer Walk is a live grey. He went in the ground when he was beaten, albeit beaten by Tinozo at Goodwood. He's the sort who will go well, I think. Pluralism, the French horse, as you said, doesn't look the easiest to ride. He wasn't as a 2-year-old. He appeared in the paddock with all sorts of gags, and one can't help wondering whether he's the easiest of horses to navigate around here for Freddie Head. Tinozo, we know, can go in the ground, and he looked a picture. I can't help wondering whether the Noble Player is going to get the trip, because he's out of a 6-furlong mare. I think there are grave doubts about his stamina. I was down by the paddock watching the field with Pook, Johnson, Horton, and we were taking a great interest in Wassel in particular, the winner of the Irish 2,000 guineas, none more so than Pook, because he trained not only Wassel's dam Hayloft, but also his grand dam Haymaking. Now, their respective sires, Tudor Melody and Gallivanta, and with the best will in the world, I know he would have loved to be training the horse, who in fact was sold as a yearling, but Pook cannot see Wassel lasting 1.5 miles in this ground. Zoffany, Peter, looked a picture. He looked really, really well, and he, as you know, wears blinkers. There's been no blinkered winner of the Derby since Aboyeur got it on a disqualification way back in 1912. Zoffany looks a picture, but the Harwood information is that he's a top-of-the-ground horse, a bit of a kinky horse, shall we say, a horse who is basically better than Gordian at home. Gordian, the tough nut by Grundy, just might be the honest sort to cope with the conditions today.
Well, as the horses are going now between the two ends of the course, from the paddock towards the 1.5 mile start, let's find out the latest news of the betting from Ian Dark.
And Tinozo is back as a clear favourite, having gone in now half a point from 11-2 to 5-1. Salmon Leap eased just a little to 6-1. Lowman, further money for that one, in from 10-1 to 9-1. Still on 10-1, Morecambe and Wassel. And further support and significant support all day for Carlingford Castle from Ireland, now at 12-1, having been 14-1 earlier. Ptolomeo also on 14-1, 16-1 Sheer Walk and the Noble Player, still on 20-1 Pluralisma and Guns of Neverone, 25-1 Zoffany and Gordian, 50-1 bar those, Peter.
Well, it's certainly an international race this year, Michael, with an American runner and 3 from Ireland and the French runner Pluralisme. Are we going to lose it this year, or do you think we're going to keep it at home?
Well, as you say, Peter, it's a fascinating race. It's probably the most open derby that I dare say you can recall. It's been an amazing spring, a miserable spring in many ways, because trainers haven't been able to give their horses the preparations they've wanted. We've been denied trials here, there, and everywhere. The trainers themselves have got down in the dumps. They haven't been able to communicate. Plans have gone haywire. But it's still the Derby, and I have a feeling that we've got a great chance of keeping it at home with Lester Piggott and Tinozo. This horse is I suppose you might say, almost a St. Leger horse, pedigree-wise, but then the same could be said about Touching Wood last year, and Touching Wood went into the race as a maiden. Tinozo goes into the race having won a maiden by 10 lengths, having won a Derby trial, with Lester Piggott on his back, proven ability over 1.5 miles on soft ground, on an undulating course. In this of all races, on this of all days, with these of all circumstances, I think Tinozo's got a lot going for him. Another horse who actually we hadn't mentioned earlier, who took my eye time and time again in the paddock, although one would have reservations about his sire, the Sprinter Bold Lad, is Guns of Navarone. Now, he ran an extremely good race to finish second in the Mercadante Stakes at York, to Tinozo's stable companion. And I have a feeling Captain Marcos Lemus has been a great supporter of English racing. Clive Britton patronizes classics and group races, and he's got 3 runners today. Guns of Navarone looks the picture, and I could see him running a very bold race today.
Another change of betting, Michael. Tinozo and Salmon Leap, 11-2 joint favourites. Wassel, in spite of what Fulk Johnson Horton says, has come in a point 9-1 from 10-1. Of course, Wassel's family, which Fulk Johnson Horton knows so well, was actually originally a staying family into which speed had been injected. And although there's Gallivanter in the pedigree, of course, the dam is by Tudor Melody, and Tudor Melody got a mile. I have a sneaking feeling that Wassel might get it, you know.
Are you going to come clean with me, Peter? Is Wassel yours?
No, I have gone for Tinozo, with Wassel to follow him home.
Well, we're in harmony on that one, on Tinozo anyway. Fulk said, you know, Hay lost the dam of Wassel, only won over 5 furlongs. And he knew them. He admitted that the family had been injected with blood, the Gallivanter blood, the Tudor Melody blood, but he can't help wondering. A horse we haven't discussed is Ptolomeo, who is by a miler, second in the Guineas, and people often say that Guineas form is better than any other classic trial. After all, it is a classic. And he was running on extremely well up the hill at Newmarket. I don't think this is going to be the easiest of rides for his rider, Gianfranco Dettori. He had a pretty miserable experience a few years ago on Wallow. Lester Piggott deserted Ptolomeo in order to ride the favourite, Tinozo. Ptolomeo would be better on better ground, and if he's got to be held up, which I believe he's got to be, then I don't think that Dettori is going to find the task at all easy today, even in this rather reduced size of field, especially when you're going to get the race probably dictated up front by, let us say, the likes of Lester Piggott on Tinozo, and I'm sure Michael Canaan is not going to be far off the pace on what is theoretically the third string of the Irish Challenge, Carlingford Castle. But if there are any flaws in the Ballydoyle camp, he could be the best of the Irish contingent.
Well, there was a delay in the horses leaving the paddock because I believe Sloopy had to be replated down there, but the field is now already 6 minutes late off, but they are now going round behind the stalls. Thank you, Michael Phillips, for your comments. It'll be very interesting to see if these, on breeding anyway, on paper, non-stayers do actually get the trip on a day when it is going to favour the real stayers. It is a stayers derby this year. And let's find out the latest news from the betting ring from Ian Darf.
And Tinozo and Salmon Leap still jousting for favouritism. Both of them now on 5-1. 5-1 joint favourites, Tinozo and Salmon Leap. A bit of late money from Morecon. That one was drifting in the market earlier. It's now gone in from 10-1 to 8-1. It's 9-1 Wassel and Lohman, 12 to 1 Carlingford Castle, and no change with any of the outsiders.